thing which really interests me is that one of the things which has blocked cooperation is it's been fundamentally challenging to organise decision-making in groups. It's the problem of democracy. Oscar Wilde used to say that socialism was a wonderful idea, but it took up too many evenings. And the same is true of cooperative enterprises. It takes a lot of time for lots of people to collaborate, to make decisions. So either they become participants in it, which slightly changes their relationship to things. The power is introduced into this dynamic, and that can be a strange force. Or else people absent themselves from decision making, and you lose the potential to harness their contribution. Where these platforms, I think, offer something which we've never had before, is the ability to, we can move to a more analog way of being involved, whereas the previous model was digital. You either were involved or you weren't involved. Whereas now you can choose the grade, the depth to which you wish to be involved in decision making, be involved in some parts, like on the Inner Natives platform, you can choose which role, and you can have many roles, but to join is not to be having to commit to being involved in every role. And that feels like it works with the way in which people run their lives. They're busy, they have other interests, they have other things they wish to do, and so we've got the ability to track that. The second thing which I mentioned, the Rochdale Pioneers, how did they track it? Well, when every time you went into the store, it was logged what you had bought. And at the end of the year, all of the products you had bought were tallied, and that created your proportion of the profit share. It was incredibly time-consuming to capture what value was being added at different stages by the different contributors, and then to apportion rewards which flow from that value on an equitable, proportional basis. But with good software, this is the easiest part of the whole process. And so what was the barrier in the 20th and 19th centuries is the entry-level starting point in the 21st, and that's what's really, really exciting.
I don't know, or this, I don't know. Pooh, what shall I say? What? It works already? Okay, good. Yeah, of course, I agree with almost everything that you say, of course. I mean, these beautiful platforms make things easier. It's indeed, you know, I mean, we can communicate in a way that was totally impossible in the past. But let us go. I'm now since 2.5 years a director of a scientific institute, and basically my institutional context basically says, please write very important papers in journals that probably none of you have written, but the top journals are Science, Nature, PNAS and whatever, so that is what my group has to do. I'm sitting on a number of nice databases that captures the whole global economy. And we have this whole discussion like how open source do we make that? Because if you make it open source, you have more people working on it and all this kind of stuff. But hey, wait a minute, no, that maybe is preventing us writing that incredible paper that makes this high top level journal. So you have really something about intellectual property rights, who gets the profit from what. In the system that you have, don't you have a problem with a lot of free riders that basically say, oh, nice, I have to, and I pick it out, and I build my own business model around it, and I have the profits, and the cooperative that you basically have organized is actually empty-handed. So that is something that I cannot really grasp. It comes a bit to your point about, okay, there you have a beautiful idea, but an Airbnb becomes the Death Star because they centralize profit and all this kind of stuff. How do you prevent that kind of movement? That is a bit of a question.
Hello. I have to apologize. I didn't hear anything because the sound is so bad. I can't understand. So I hope I don't just say the same as you just did. I want to say I'm a bit. I see that I think that the crowdsourcing model has a lot of limitations with this top-down and bottom-up, back to the top approach. Because what we see in this decentralized open innovation ecosystems is that there are a lot more roles that will be hard to provide through an through this pyramid. For example, why are people contributing to the WordPress open source blogging platform? Not because they want to give something to WordPress, because they make their living with it. Most of them are designers or coders that are freelancers that sell web pages, and they use this ecosystem, and of course they contribute, but of their own interest to make money. This is hard to do the same way in this crowdsourcing approach, where then in most cases there's just one person or one company that then wants to make money. There are not just more scope. Yeah, I think I've made my point. Sorry.
Thank you, guys. Are there questions from the audience? Can we have some more light in the room? Is that possible? Yeah. Over here.
I have one question to the innovative platform. Like all the EU projects.
Quickly introduce yourself.
I'm Martin Lahmann. I'm the organizer of the Make Munich Maker Fair of Munich. Like all the EU programs, you have a timetable, and if the project is over, what happens with this great project or your platform?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this question. I wanted to talk about it beforehand, but I forgot, so thanks for asking. Obviously, this platform is going to continue. Our EU funding ends next week, so end of February, we're done officially for the European Union, but this is for us like a startup organization basically, and we are definitely going to take it further. That's why we set up all the cooperations with other organizations. We already planned a sustainable business model for the platform itself, so it can be continued and it can somehow be self-sufficient. This is still up to experimentation, so we see how good we can be in earning money. So far, we offered everything for free to everybody. Now we think that, okay, a sustainable business model would include that commercial actors would actually pay for using the platform, not the non-profits, not the universities and the academia, but everybody who earns money by using the platform should actually contribute to the platform also financially. That's kind of the basic idea, but of course there are more details to that. And so yes, it's going to be continued, and we should definitely talk about some potential collaboration with the whole maker scene and maker movement, because I think we could have very much common interest in that as well. Thanks for asking.
Hello, Peter Stebbing. I have a slightly tangential question, which I'm particularly interested in Arnold referring to, which is that we've been referring to change in the world of commerce. But of course, a lot of us are educators, and I'm wondering if you have some good tips on creating change in education, where the drive is not to make a profit.
How do you mean change in education?
Well, I mean modifying the curriculum and moving it. In many institutions, actually getting sustainability integrated into the curriculum is very slow. And not happening nearly fast enough, because there maybe is not the necessity to make a profit. I know it's a slightly tangential question, but of course all design students enter commerce, and so it's just taking the problem a little bit back to the roots. Yeah. And I would be interested in your reference to that problem, and of course the other speakers too.
Oh my goodness. Again, okay, I'm happy enough to be a boss of a scientific institute, so I'm something like 2 levels below the leader of the university, what is it called, the provost or something like that. But I cannot influence, of course, the provost or the design department in Delft, which actually is the design department in the Netherlands at the university level. I just know that we happen to have their design department that makes very good education and that kind of stuff. You can work a little bit with these massive open online courses, so we have developed 2 of them that has a great outreach, that is all great. Again, I'm a bit like, I can do what I control. I can do smart things that influence much more people than directly in the courses that we give, like with this massive open online course. But then I cannot really control what other universities at a certain moment are going to offer or say that is really relevant. What we could do, but that is again in the Dutch system, actually we have an incentives. I'm paid by the turnout of students. So if I can get a lot of students to my courses, my institute gets bigger. So then it almost comes down to how attractive are my courses and how much can I attract students from other directions to my course. That is more or less the mechanism that I see. And yeah. And the other thing is that it's almost implicit in your question, that you almost say, oh, if you educate people well, then they will behave better in the companies. I'm not so sure. If you go to Philips and Philips says, sorry, this is the direction, we have an iconic TV, that is the green TV, but we just do it for window dressing, because the money is elsewhere. I mean, you're not going to change that by education.
Other questions? Over here in the back.
Hello, my name is Jenny Ludwig. I'm also from Munich, this Maker Festival here. I have two questions, particularly about the platforms. What problems did you face during establishing of these platforms? Because I focus always this gap between talking about makers and making, because we are started here talking about making, and sometimes this workshops are missing or the end product. So I think this is also one big focus of these platforms to get it running. It was particular for Lars.
For me?
Yeah, or
I
for
thought it's
Ursula.
for her. Okay. The problems that with the platform. Your question is, you want to have makers involved, and then they don't come. And how did we did it? How have we managed that they came?
Yes, for
That's
example, or how to really to get them for collaboration, because most of them have their own projects and their little workshops.
Yeah, that's true, and that's great, I think. So it's the if you want to have someone really motivated in their projects, then it should be their project, you know, and they're doing it for them, and they're building their own stage, and you should support that. I guess what made us successful, or if you want to call it successful, with the maker movement last year is that it's just our network. We are part of this network. We know how to talk to those people, and yeah. So I would say up for now, it's 50% of the people that reaching out to us are people that run Fab Labs, just because it's their way to communicate, using the web, talking about open source, plugging into decentralized collaboration. I guess it's just the right tone. Hopefully it helps.
I'm taking this opportunity to speak because I'm actually putting a request out to you. One of the things which slightly concerns me is that there is a kind of technocratic utopianism. Sorry if it's what I mean by that is that there is a kind of right way to do something and problem solving, and I'm animated by the sort of the politics of this, that deciding what is the optimal solution is a political and philosophical question as much as a practical question. And the way in which humans tend to resolve these issues is through some form of discussion and debate. And what I fear is that a lot of the platforms appear to be very male-dominated. And there is a way of acting online which is not very equal, and that a lot of these systems involve contributing to these discussions in ways which are exclusionary, almost unconsciously. And I'm interested that in saying platforms can be solutions, that I'm a guy. Of course I think they're a solution. I'm good at writing emails really quickly and answering points and fisking, but a lot of people aren't. So it privileges a way of expression and intervention which is gender specific, I think, and I'm interested to know, do people have experiences of these kinds of systems which are not? For example, I'm fascinated by liquid democracy, the Pirate Party system, but I'm not German, and I have no idea whether this is a Twitter-style misogynistic hellhole or it's actually really interesting. So, please come and see me in the lunch, and I'd love to hear your experiences.
I just want to add something great that you said. This we don't know why, and we are super proud of it. But the OSCE Days community is made 50% or more from women. So in the board of stewardship, we are 50% women, and most people that reach out to us are women, and it's really really exciting because we know these problems, especially in the hacker world that is so male-dominated. And I think it's because we bring in the sustainability subject, which is more or less more female-related today. And the second part is that we're really open and inclusive. And there were especially some girls coming to me and say, hey, that's what somehow attracts them, this openness and inclusiveness and this freedom that we somehow manage to communicate in this community. So it's really a...
And Dave, I have good news too. InnoNatives is half-half. Half male, half female. And I have to say, we have this reputation system, so we check who's more busy, active, and more successful. And the women are doing a little better than the guys, so yay. I couldn't agree with it's male-dominated and it's exclusive. I think for us, at least, it seems to be working pretty well. Thank you. Although I have one more comment related to problems. Maybe it's not necessarily the same with the maker movement, but maybe it is with the designers. And we are addressing lots of design groups, design students, design schools, and so on, the creatives. I was very surprised to find that one of the biggest barrier to using the platform was the fear that people would steal their ideas. So they're still sitting behind their desk and not sharing anything with anyone because they think, oh, they're still my ideas. And I think that is kind of old-fashioned for me. Being a designer in practice for 20 years, we shared everything all the time because that's the only way forward. And if you give, you get back. So it's just a natural way of developing together. But still many, even especially also young designers, they still have that attitude of, no, I want to get paid for every idea that I give to somebody, you know. And that was a little surprise to me, actually. I didn't expect it to be that strong. Okay. I think we have to, well, one more over here. One more question. Yeah, please. Two more, but try to be short, okay?
Okay. I'm Hernando Pinzon. I'm also a product designer. I work in Munich. And I have a question for Dave. You were talking about cooperative enterprises, and I had quite a feeling that you described that as a very local or local related sort of economy, so that it would be kind of opposing to the global economy. So did I understood that right? Do we have to think more local in the way we produce and generate assets and distribute these assets? Or is the possibilities that we get with the internet, should we keep embracing them, like Lars said, to create more a global way of producing?
Historically, they've been very local because their sort of inner limit has been the ability of people to form a community which has bonds of the sort of, what's that, weak ties, where you've got enough relationships which are strong enough to cohere a group identity to make people commit to working together. And that has historically been best mediated by physical local contact. So there's been a sort of imminent limit to their ability to scale because of that communication and identity problem. So when I've spoken them in terms of local examples, it's because historically that's been how it has operated, and cooperatives have always struggled to scale to larger units because they're in the same way that you have a local municipality, then you might have a regional administration, then a national government, and then the EU. And at the top level, the Council of Ministers don't give a shit what you think because the aggregation up the pyramid of decision making is removing it from contact. So there's been and that's made for dissatisfying scaling. And what the exciting opportunity comes is that the community can be of interest rather than of physicality. So people who share the same views, values, and vision, I didn't mean to use all the same V, but it just flew out there. But those people can find each other wherever they are, as the internet is magnificent at making people feel less alone. because there are always some other people out there who are just like you and are happy to collaborate, and that can be from Furbies to any form of kinky niche you might think of, and can also be the true of collaboration for economic and social progress.
Yes, my name is Susanne Ketlinski. I'm running a small consultancy called Open Sustain. And I would like to ask, what kind of competencies do you think are needed if you're thinking of the future of green economy and circular economy?
I start? I can start. Okay, yeah. I'm kind of guy always looking at the big picture and big systems, and I think small people like us, yeah, I mean, we have to do what we have to do, what we can do, and I think all the skills that we already have, I mean, just put it. I think maybe if there is one skill, it's like how can you actually, from bottom up, make sure that the whole governance system and that kind of stuff creates incentives for sustainability rather than something else, rather than the incentives for the Death Stars. I think, yeah, if you can really solve that riddle, then I'm really happy.
I don't know if it's a competence, but I think there is a, and apologies for saying this, but I can't think of a better way to put it, there is a lack of understanding of political economy in a lot of social change implementation. There is a kind of a feeling that we just have to do something ourselves and it will be so. There's a bigger structure out there, so it's about doing what you can, but not being blind to the opportunities and the challenges which are faced by being in a very unequal society with capital accumulating and essentially read Thomas Piketty as well as the other things you might read to do what you do.
Yeah, and I'm also not sure if this is a skill, but I will use this to rephrase some of the things I said earlier. It's really try to dive into decentralization, really try to understand what this is, because I think a real sustainable change can only happen in a decentralized way. It has to be everywhere, and people have to be able to use it for whatever they want it to use. And it's hard for us to invent this, but all the successful collaboration methods, the really successful collaboration methods we have, like email or Screws, they are all decentralized. And how to make this in a digital realm, we still have to figure this out. We are not super happy with our platform because it's still also a little bit centralized, because we still ask the people to post something in the forum. But we say to them, if you have your own webpage, post it on your own blog. We encourage them, set up your own WordPress, share the files on your webpage. Don't come necessarily to ours. But there have to be more solutions invented to make us really communicate and work together on sustainability issues in a decentralized way.
Yeah, and I might add, yes, you have to be able to communicate across borders, across cultures, across languages. For us, it's English. It's not our native language, so everybody who wants to join at least needs a little bit of English. Then you can run everything in your own language, but to be an international collaborator, language is definitely a good skill. Then being a little humble, we are not the ego designers anymore. We don't want to promote ourselves with our projects, and we know how the world should look, and that's what we do. But we're facilitators, basically. We're not running the show. We're helping others to express what they think should happen, and then we try to collaborate, connect them, and make people work together. And I think, for me, that's also part of the fun, absolutely. It's really inspiring to see what people propose and post on the platform and what kind of crazy ideas they have. And don't forget that sometimes the solution that you're searching for exists already somewhere else in the world. So that's why looking into other cultures, even if it's a very poor community in a very poor developing countries, they have great solutions, and we can actually learn from them. So be a little humble and don't think that the Western world has invented already everything. No, the opposite is the case. We have actually created a big mess, and some other people have some much better solutions than we do. So listen to people, look at what others are doing, be a little humble. Thank you. Thanks to our great panel over here, and thanks for your questions.